Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. You made the trip. We're here for the 630th episode, and beginning of December, and it's getting cold outside, and it's still cold in the studio too. But I'm glad you joined us, and sure would like to have some people come on down and come and see us on our filmings. We'll be here one more day in December. We'll be here on the 12th, Monday at 7:30. So behind Sheldon High School, come in and say hi. Other than that, we won't be back until January 2nd. So if you could come in on the 12th, that'd be great too, or better. Anyway, I wanted to talk to you about Elvy Musikka. Eugene Musikka, rather, is our friend, and she's been on the show several times. She's one of the 4 living federal medical marijuana patients, and she lives right here in Eugene. And right now she's traveling in Colombia with Paul Sanford, and they're doing some hemp business and cannabis business down there. But anyway, I've got her tin here, and this is her tin that she receives her medicine from the federal government. It comes in 300 joints, all pre-rolled, stuffed into this can, one like this, and she gets one of these a month. It says right on here, marijuana cigarettes, high potency, approximately 300 cigarettes per can. And expiration date, no, let's see. Anyway, so this is, marijuana cigarettes, high potency. Anyway, so what she does with these tins is people end up, quite a collector item, so people like to get those from her. And she doesn't have much of an income herself, and so she needs money to operate on and do her activism, cannabis activism with. So she has this tin available, and she has gotten as high as $3,000 for them. She'd like to get $1,000 for this one. So if you know someone, or you be interested in that, get a hold of me, and I will get you a hold of her, and we'll work it out. But I told her I could bring it on the show and talk about it, and maybe we could find somebody that could be willing to like to have one and willing to donate to Elvy, our friend Elvy. And Elvy will be back too one of these days, and so we'll get to see her again, and she'll tell us all about her Colombia trip. So anyway, I want to see announcements. I went to the I didn't go, but I found out that the Cannabis Science Pub last month didn't happen. So I'm not sure what the deal is. I'll get an update on that. But the biggest thing is the holidays and the end of the year, and people think of giving and all that. And I just wanted to put out a little plea for Eugene Cannabis TV. We definitely could use some help, especially in equipment. We're still looking for a good hard drive. We need a good, let's say, 2 terabit standard hard drive. Would be a big shot in the arm for us. But there's a few things like that we could use. So if you could help out Eugene Cannabis TV, let us know. You can get a hold of me through my email, dankbagman@hotmail.com, or leave a message on the comments on YouTube, or somehow you can get to us, figure it out. So we could sure use your help. I got a couple interesting stories about CBD. This one here was on the insider.thcuniversity.org, written by Josephine Harvey. Study shows promise for treating asthma with CBD. If you are familiar with CBD, then you recognize the benefits it provides for the mind and body. Be it for focus or stress or pain relief, CBD has continually shown over and over just how vast its benefits can range. Now, with more opportunities for scientists to research and study THC and CBD over the past few years, a finding on CBD has surfaced that is bringing hope to asthma sufferers. After being approved for the study, researchers in Brazil used 8-week-old rats for an experiment using CBD to treat asthma. The rats were injected with a protein used to induce asthmatic reaction called ovalbumin. After 2 weeks, the rats were re-injected with ovalbumin, and at week 3, the rats were separated into 3 groups: a control group, an asthma group, and an asthma/CBD group. Once the asthma/CBD rats were injected with the CBD for multiple days, the rats' blood was taken and tested. Test results from the asthma/CBD rats showed a decrease in not only cytokines, a cell released by the immune system when experiencing something such as an allergic reaction, but also in mucus production, meaning the symptoms of an asthmatic reaction were far lesser in the rats injected with CBD than the rats that had no CBD treatment. While the findings of this study are optimistic, it doesn't come without drawbacks. Unfortunately, scientists weren't able to study the airways or lung function of the rats, which is essential when it comes to the study of potential asthma treatment. Additionally, many ailments have been shown that have shown improvement using CBDs have used a combination of THC and CBD, while this study used only CBD. Without proper testing or complete testing, scientists and researchers will only be seeing partial results. So that caught my eye. This article caught my eye, especially when I first started as an activist almost over 15 years ago, closer to 20. I remember reading somebody wrote on the internet. I just got on the internet about that time too, and I remember somebody that wrote that he had grown up in Finland and he had suffered from asthma as a child, and he said he remembers his father taking him to a Finnish doctor, and he remembers that the Finnish doctor had some kind of leaf material that he lit on fire and got it smoking, and then placed a cloth over the smoking herb, and had had him put his head under the cloth too to inhale the smoke. And he said he always remembered the instant relief that he got from his asthma. And he said that he hadn't smelled that smell, had never smelled it again until years and years later when he was walking down the hall of his house and he smelled that smell coming out of his son's bedroom. But anyway, it's interesting that there was a case of an actual doctor using it medicinally, and they're basically saying what they're saying right here. Looking at it, it might be something that will help people with asthma. So that's something we keep finding all the time. More and more things that people that CBD is doing for people. And speaking of CBD, here's another one also from the insider.thcuniversity.org, dated the 30th of November. Didn't identify the author. Can CBD test positive on a drug screening? As a bud tender, I am frequently asked if a high CBD product or flower will show up on a test. This is definitely a complicated question, as there is more than one answer and more than one test. CBD is a non-psychoactive property of the plant and thus isn't very worrisome. But when it's derived from marijuana, the details get more perplexing. Hemp itself is low in THC. A glance at CBD products derived from hemp makes for a great example, with most products showing minuscule or non-existence of THC within them. However, depending on whether you live, where you live and the kind of CBD products available, the CBD you're buying could very well be derived from marijuana. Marijuana itself is known for its THC content and therefore requires more research if you have a job or career that tests for drugs. There are a couple of different tests that provide different results. One of the screening tests for all cannabinoids, both THC and CBD are cannabinoids, which can result in a failed drug test. This test is called a broad spectrum panel test. The other test is called gas chromatography mass spectrometry, or GSCS test for short. This test is applied if your original urine screening tests positive. The CSMS test is more detail-oriented, recognizing the difference between CBD and THC, saving you from a failed screening, as long as you're consuming CBD products that don't have a significant THC presence. It's safe to say that CBD is fine to consume as a recreational customer, but if you have concerns about the broad spectrum panel test or are worried about potentially failing a drug screening, contact your general care physician or for a doctor's approval before consuming or using CBD products. A doctor's note is bound to protect both your job and your health. I know when I helped out a couple of different clinics, people were coming in actually and getting a medical card, so because they were prescribed Marinol, and by having a medical card, then they could show that why they tested positive. They were using it medicinally. So anyway, that's a little more about that. And you got a. I better go into the next segment on that one. A little bit long story. I did want to talk about, of course, President Trump. We don't talk about him a whole lot on this show, but we're looking at a recall, and we're still waiting for the results of that. This particular article was dated the 23rd of November. Written as in the politicUSUSA.com, written by Jason Easley. Trump hit with Thanksgiving surprise as Green Party files for recount in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. It says Jill Stein, the Green Party is formally petitioning for a recount of 3 states: Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Trump's margin of less than 11,600 in Michigan, 27,200 in Wisconsin, and 68,000 in Pennsylvania. If just a few thousand votes were found in Wisconsin and Michigan, Hillary Clinton becomes president by 276 electoral votes versus 264 for Trump. The Green Party is filing in Wisconsin because the votes were cast on proven hack-prone machines. This has been a hack-ridden election, according to Jill Stein. She's saying that it will be most difficult to recount the machines in Pennsylvania. When asked why the Democrats were not bringing this action, Stein told this reporter that Democrats do not act to protect the vote even when there is dramatic evidence of tampering. And so far, Clinton campaign has not made a move towards challenging the results of those 3 states. The American people deserve to know the truth about the 2016 election. If the election was clean, it needs to be confirmed. If the election was tampered with, a recount is a must. So we'll say the jury's still out on that one, and we'll see how that turns out, I guess. But it's interesting how Clinton doesn't seem to be interested in any kind of a recount from what we're not hearing, I guess you'd say. So I don't know. But again, remember Elvy Musikka's medical marijuana tin. You may tell your friends and neighbors about it and see if we can help Elvy out and getting a donation for that tin. And somebody could have one heck of a museum piece, actually. So anyway, we're going to be right back, and we'll do the second half. So stick around. I'll be here, and I hope you...
And now, a message from the American Marijuana Growers Association.
Hi, I'm a farmer, and I work hard every day to grow high-quality marijuana, the biggest cash crop in these United States. I'd like to thank you for your support of U.S. marijuana policy. Because marijuana is illegal, I don't have to pay taxes. Even better, prohibition leads to artificially inflated prices, which means a better quality of life for me and my family, as long as I don't get caught. Just as importantly, your tax dollars support thousands of U.S. agents who work tirelessly to keep low-grade, foreign marijuana out of our country. So thank you, America. And remember, whether you're nauseated from chemotherapy or just in the mood for a nice cool buzz, choose the best pot in the world, American Homegrown.
Welcome back to the second half of episode 630 of the Eugene Cannabis TV show. You got DanK here, your host, and no guest tonight, so we're reading news stories and talking about things that are happening in the cannabis world. Always open invitation to come on down to the studio, and if nothing else, stop in and say hi, visit, and check out the operation and see how we do it. If you'd like to come on the show, we'd love to have you come on the show. No obligation, but love to have you come on the show and tell your cannabis story. We encourage people to do that. And we've got one more show this month. It'll be on the 12th of December. So you can come on in for that. This is an interesting thing I picked up off of news off of Facebook. And this is about Doug H-E-U-E-R, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Doug Hero asked state officials to examine the city's illegal and unjust tax. This was in the Portland Tribune, written by Colin Staub, November 23rd this year. City faces a petition against the marijuana tax. A local resident is asking state officials to step in and help overturn Newberg's unreasonable marijuana tax, which he argues is not in line with state law. Doug Heuer recently sent a petition for redress to the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, the Oregon Health Authority, the Oregon Department of Revenue, local Newberg officials, and a number of state legislatures. There is a grievance against the city, moving for the city to comport and comply with our Oregon Constitution and the laws enacted thereunder, Heuer wrote, later adding that he requests that his representatives in government take appropriate action to correct this illegal and unjust tax. If the tax isn't overturned, Heuer asks that Newberg be considered an opt-out city that doesn't receive statewide marijuana tax proceeds. Petition for redress is a right guaranteed by the First Amendment of the Constitution. In essence, it is the right to ask the government to fix a supposed wrong against the citizens. In this case, the wrong is the 10% tax on recreational marijuana and 5% tax on medical marijuana levied by the city on local retailers and dispensaries. The tax was implemented in 2014, just prior to the passage of Measure 91, which legalized certain marijuana activities at the state level. Many cities around the state got local taxes on the books early, hoping to later make the case that their taxes are grandfathered in if the state tried to limit cities' taxation ability. That's exactly what happened when in the 2015 legislature session, House Bill 3400 was passed, dictating cities can levy a maximum 3% local tax on recreational marijuana and also banning the taxation of medical marijuana. Suddenly, cities' taxes were not in line with state law unless they were determined to be grandfathered. HB 3400 also requires cities to send a tax to a vote of the people before it is implemented. Since then, many cities have gone that route, statewide and locally, and the November 8th election, Dundee, Lafayette, McMinnville, Sheridan, and Willamina all sent a 3% recreational tax to the voters, and all passed. That became known as the safe harbor approach, as it ensured the cities will have a legally safe tax, even if it's lower than what they had before. Newberg declined to do so, instead taking a wait-and-see approach. Essentially, the city is waiting for a legal judgment on whether its tax is legal or not. City Attorney Truman Stone said the city received a copy of Heuer's petition last week and that he had shared it with the city council. The city previously faced a legal petition from Heuer in late 2014 when he asked the city to clarify its authority to implement any taxes on marijuana. That case was closed in 2015 after some procedural errors, but as statewide advocacy groups But as statewide advocacy groups made gains on the marijuana front, Herrera decided not to reopen the legal case. Since his new petition isn't a legal case, it's a little more difficult to say what the outcome could be. I would admit I'm a little perplexed, Stone said, noting it seems Herrera is asking state legislatures to use political pressure and compel the city to remove its pot tax. On Monday, Herrera said he's not sure there will be any outcome from the petition, but that he's hoping to stir some action. He wrote the petition himself, but consulted an attorney who has helped in other cases when cities have repealed local pot taxes. Without the funds to really take it to court, all I can do is to keep putting it in their nose, he said, and give them a little bit of a push. It's not entirely clear yet who, if anyone, is compelled to respond, as the petition is not a legal filing. In a 1984 U.S. Supreme Court decision in Minnesota, Board of Community Colleges versus Knight, Justice Sandra Day O'Connor said the court found nothing in the First Amendment that would require governments to respond to concerns expressed by the public. According to the First Amendment Center, a nonpartisan information center, the Constitution, quote, does not mandate that the government consider the public petitions or actually provide any redress, unquote, and that the guarantee of, quote, due process, unquote, only applies if the matter takes the form of a court case. Besides the state agencies and the city, the petition names state representatives Bill Post, Floyd Pazanski, and Ann Liniger, as well as state senators Kim Thatcher, Ted Ferroli, and Jenny Burdick as respondents. Stone said he discussed the petition with Mayor Bob Andrews, who indicated he wasn't planning on addressing the petition in a council meeting. At this point, we are not planning on taking any action, Stone said. And there was one comment by John Sajo, who is a well-known activist in the city of Oregon, very well spoken. John wrote and said, "Kudos to Mr. Herrera for doing what is right. Shame on all of our elected officials who don't care and just do whatever they can get away with." So that's our marijuana situation in the state of Oregon as it is today, and the legislature is going into session next year, and the lines are being drawn already. So I'll be letting you know what's going on that front, and we'll be having a lot to talk about, believe me, because as I like to say, the Oregon legislature has been trying to cripple the Oregon medical marijuana plan ever since it was implemented in 1998. The legislature, it seems that they don't like marijuana people, they don't like marijuana itself, but they don't seem to have any problem with taking the money. They're overcharging the medical marijuana patients for the program, have been since 1998, and keeping the money and applying it to other costs of the government instead of getting the money back to the patients, what they should be doing, because the program is supposed to pay for the operation of the program, not the operation of the state. And so it's something that's egregious, and it just keeps going on and getting worse, because the last legislature, they made some changes that were not beneficial to the to patients. A lot of growers are dropping patients because the new procedures that they can't afford to just keep on like they have been, plus the fact that patients are now stuck with a $200 fee and they have to get an outside grower, and it's just, all it is junk fees. It's just like overdraft charges at the bank or returned items charge at the bank. Late fees, you know, they're junk fees. That's what they call them in finance circles. They're called junk fees because all they are is just an excuse to get some more income coming in, and they just name a service and then they charge for it. And so anyway, that's how that works, and that's why anytime I encounter a junk fee, I always be sure and call it what it is. More often than not, the people I'm talking to don't have a clue what you're talking about, so I give them a little education. I say, well, it's just an excuse for you to get into my pocket even more, and it's in reality it's a junk fee. You call it or whatever, but I call it junk fee because that's what it is. So anyway, that's the reality of it. And like I said, the legislature's going to be going in session, and you can believe me, it's going to be a lot worse than it was last year. And last year was a nightmare. Our movement leaders seem to be doing fine. They seem to be quite happy with the way things are going, generally, because they're looking for the money. See, well, I always said for years that legalization, we would never, the reason we're having trouble getting pot legalized because there's no money in it. Okay, well, the medical come along and we got that passed, and then people realize, well, oh man, there's some money to be involved in medical marijuana, so there's been a lot of money made in medical marijuana, and so that brought in the money up, and so they said, well, now maybe we can find some money for legalization, so let's do a legalization initiative. So they come up with Measure 91, and they got it passed. It said 3 places in Measure 91, and 3 places in that measure that they would not interfere with the medical marijuana laws. Well, the legislature got a hold of it after the voters passed it by a 12% margin. The Oregon legislatures, who of course think that they're smarter than anybody else, anyway, decided they needed to straighten out this whole system, you know. So they made a real mess of it, and as you can see, if I read in the news, the testing boondoggle, quagmire, whatever you want to call it, for testing products is now causing some serious problems in the industry. But anyway, so it's going to be interesting when next the legislature. But I can tell you that the patients themselves have very little voice in the Oregon legislature, so we need to stand up. So I'll be announcing rallies and get-togethers and keeping you up on what's going on. But we definitely it's time for action. We may be legal, but there's still penalties involved, so it's not really legal. It's only further decriminalized. So we need for legalization, and I'll be talking about that, as I always do, more and more. So anyway, appreciate you watching the show, and appreciate the opportunity to be able to present this show. And remember, the Eugene Cannabis TV show could use some help. We need hardware. We need a hard drive, 2 gig terabyte at least. Thanks. See you next week. I'll be here. Hope you will.